Good morning and welcome to another edition of Roadhouse Live. We are live. Today is Monday, July 24, 2023. Bender, tell me a story, Bender.
I just did. We just covered all this.
Oh, yeah.
We just covered all this pre going live, but
Pre
we
going
had
live.
another race. Yeah, we had another race this weekend, which went well. None of our, you know, like I was kind of telling you when you come back and no one gets injured and uh, we don't we didn't knock over any barrels, and it's like okay, that's a win, right? Success. There was one lady who I felt bad for. She got thrown off pretty hard. She was and she was a little older. She was probably not a little. She was probably in her 30s, and she got thrown off and flew probably at least 15 feet horizontally, right? Like she was coming around this turn and she just got whipped off and did one of those like, scorpion unintended scorpion move where her like feet went over her head backwards type of thing.
Mm.
And the horse was pissed, took off through the alley and out into the warm up zone and then out into the parking lot and was, basically trying to kick anything that got near it. So that was a little scary. She laid on the ground for probably, I don't know, a good 5 to 7 minutes, and then kind of gathered herself and her senses, and ultimately she was okay. She got up and we helped her up, and then kind of walked her back to the benches and got her some water and stuff. But it was scary at first. Like she was talking about her neck, and it's another one of those. Every now and then something like that happens where you're like, do I really want my kid doing this? But my daughter's coach, she's like, later in the evening I was talking about it, and my daughter's coach was like, you know what, you don't need to worry that happened because that lady does not know what she's doing, and it was very clear that won't happen because your daughter knows what she's doing. And I'm like, yeah, but still, still,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well,
Yep.
thank you for the story. Let's get into some of these other stories. The big story is there really is no big story over the weekend. Very muted, very quiet. Coming into the ER, and then obviously we have Fed on Wednesday, which should, in theory, give some type of like, are we going to hold these levels, or are we going to absolutely lose it one way or the other? It seems like the market wants to pause in through here. At least that's what, and me just going through the overnight action kind of looks like. We have a handful of tickers up. Tech could be due for some type of a bounce. It's just really, really sketchy the more I look at some of these charts, but Bender's going to go into that a little bit more. We had DPZ reporting this morning. It's up pre-market, or at least was last time I looked at it. I believe Whirlpool also reports. That's going to be one of the names that we want to look at for the overall health of the consumer. Whirlpool is one of those bellwethers, if you will. Tomorrow is a massive, massive day for ERs. Microsoft, Google, GM, Visa. We even have a little bit of things like Teladoc, Texas Instruments. They're all reporting tomorrow. So Pulte Group also. Tomorrow's going to be a very, very big GE. Let's see if they can continue to bring good things to life. That thing has performed extraordinarily well this year. So GE, then is actually going to have some eyeballs on it. And then Wednesday we get Fed, we get Meta, Chipotle, eBay, AT&T, Mattel, Riley Auto Parts. So while Wednesday isn't as big as Tuesday, it also has the Fed component in it, which is going to be pretty massive, considering that all conversations have been hinging on what the Fed will do. What are we doing with inflation? Has inflation cooled enough to where they can kind of back off, or are they going to continue to raise? I think a lot moving forward depends on the tone coming out of the Fed, whether or not they pause again, whether or not they raise. I think the market is expecting to some degree a raise. But it becomes very questionable whether or not a raise is actually necessary and they're going to go ahead and go for it. So, with that being said, Bender, will you walk us through what you're seeing on these charts? It's like it seems like the ES has been pretty, I don't want to say stagnant, but is held up pretty well. The wreckage carnage, if you will, has come mainly in the tech sector. So, show us what you got, man.
Sure. I was also gonna add in that we got PMI shortly after the open, right? I don't know
Yes,
what kind of impact that will have, but we do have PMI
correct.
shortly after
Thank
the
you for
open,
that.
and American Airlines raising their profit forecast. I think that came out this morning as well. Um, yeah, here's and Stonkington obviously will cover the NQ, but I was just looking at these channels here on the queues. Going over to the ES, let's go out to 60-minute real quick. And what you'll see is we've got the London session high up here, 45.77.25. Asia session low, 45.59.75. And kind of like what we were talking about pre-market, thus far, what has occurred is waddled up, hit the top of this parallel channel. Remember, I've got kind of two channels in here, the wick tops of these candles, and this channel top that goes all the way back here to April. So, we came up, we hit the top of that channel, and we've pulled back off of it and filled in, some of the fair value gaps here on these 1 hour candles. So we've got this previous candle low right here, 45.57. It's actually just a higher. 45.57.25 would be that candle's low. This 1 hour fair value gap here would fill in 45.52.75. So just 5 candles or so lower from this candle's low. And if it gives that up, I've got this shaded box down here, big open 1 hour fair value gap. So if we give up this candle's low, then this 45.53 or 45.52.75 is kind of the make or break. See if it wicks and pulls back up, or if that becomes resistance. This blue dotted line here is the midpoint of the bigger parallel channel. And I think I wouldn't necessarily expect that to hold maybe a small bounce, but ultimately, I think if it gives up that 45.52.75, then probably goes and fills in that lower fair value gap. 45.45 is kind of the low right here, and then the bottom of that 60-minute fair value gap is 45.33 half. On the flip side, you can see we've got this wait for Stonkington to say something about it, but you can see that something sort of like that that's occurring. You can extend that, down here to make a bigger channel, but you can see kind of trendline support area in here, trendline resistance, falling-ish, wedge-ish going on here. So, I'm also going to be open to the idea that we hold this 60-minute fair value gap right in here. We get through this one above 45.78.25, and this becomes, so that's a 15-minute. If I go to the 15-minute, you can see this candle right here, that fair value gap so far acting as resistance. And this is all open on a 5-minute right here. So I think if it gets through 45.78 and it can hold, then we've got a chance to start behind, right? We're in that scenario now, or kind of in that position where we've now left these swing highs behind and we haven't taken them out. So that becomes, a draw on liquidity once whatever pullback they were looking for, whatever that's done. Now we've got all this stuff behind that it can start taking out. So once it kind of pops that trendline resistance, that channel resistance, then I look for it to start taking some of these out. So in a nutshell, I think that's about it.
All right, very nice. What you got there, Sonny?
Morning, everyone. Like you said, all quiet on the news side, even upgrades and downgrades. The big one that talked about was Tesla got downgraded by UBS. They're justifying that the new model refresh is not gonna help them in the near term, but at the same time when they did a downgrade, they raised the price target.
Yeah,
So fuckery, you know. So yeah, fuckery all
once
around.
again, more talking to be talking. So
Yeah. American Express got a downgrade as well. Upgrade side, the most significant, I think, was Shopify. It made some move pre-market. It got an outperform rating by, I forgot who it was. I'll get that. Zion Bank also got a price target raised from 34 to 43. And Goldman Sachs put out their conviction list of 5 stocks they think has a 50% upside. Baidu, Shift 4 Payments, I think that's FOUR, Johnson Control, and Warner Brother Discovery.
it's interesting.
Yeah. Apple, and I think Phil also posted. So Apple is saying they're keeping the shipments of the next iPhone in line with prior models. Remember last week there was some couple of news articles out. They're having trouble with the bigger screen size. They're not going to be able to match the supply and blah blah blah. So Apple officially said, hey, it's going to be in line what we did before. So all's good. UPS. So if they don't reach an agreement, their Teamsters strike starts midnight July 31st. So they're putting out articles, hey, we're preparing for a strike, blah blah blah, which means they pretty much are gonna avert the strike and everything will be good. Auto delinquencies are on the rise for the subprime borrowers. So this came out late Saturday, with the $1,000 payment and things like that. It was only a matter of time this shit was going to happen. So it's not a surprise to anyone. IMTX, they got a $35 million investment by Bristol Myers. So they were up about 10% in the pre-market. Definitely, I'll be watching that. Usually we've seen upward movement in when bigger boys put, their dollar into these smaller bio names. Yellow trucking, it's more of it's like almost a penny stock, but I think it talks to the overall market. They are on the verge of bankruptcy. I think they have a loan due next year for $1.2 billion that they're not going to be able to make. They also stopped paying towards a pension fund like July and August. But this morning they said they made the $15 million payment due. They're trying to avert a strike, but it's going to be a shit show if they declare bankruptcy. They're the third largest trucking company in the US and the fifth largest in the LTL, which basically means they take multiple companies' stuff in one trailer. So this could be a big event in the trucking industry. Dark pools. We had a lot of dark pools because of OPEX. And trend I'm seeing majority was in the chip sector. Pretty much, I didn't think they left anyone behind on dark pools in the chip sector. The biggest one was NVIDIA. That was 19 million shares for 8.46 billion, about 40% average of the 30-day volume. AMD was pretty significant. But yeah, they came in for tech. And the second one they came in was for medical side, DXCM, ISRG, and insurance companies. So I'll post the whole list. It's pretty significant. So definitely keep the chip names on the watch. And that's it.
Yeah, no, just really, really lackluster as far as news catalyst, anything coming in
Yeah,
this week.
it's just ER, and I think they kept quiet because of the Fed week. I think they're
Hmm.
just holding stuff back till like 10 minutes before.
Yeah. All right, Stonkington, you were missed, buddy. You were missed last week. I hope you enjoyed your Tahoeing, I believe, is where you were going. What you got going on?
Oh man, yeah, I'm here, and I pulled things up on Thursday, and man, I that was my bad. 300-point move on the Nasdaq, and I wasn't here, but I'm here now. So let's get into some stuff. Uh, the stories for later, but briefly, quickly, I know not the sports guy, but been reading this guy's books over here. Mike Belfiore. These are both great books. Gotta recommend it. And although I'm not a sports person, I gotta say the practice and performance excellence mindset that is put into these books as far as how it applies to trading. I love it. It's just really good stuff. We talk about how we every day are deciding to compete with the best computers, smartest people, and you can't do it without some practice and preparation and mindset. So that was one thing that I did like from those books. Would recommend. So we talk a lot about these smash burgers out there, right? Uh, so we can kind of go through really quick, see how they would play out, and see what we've got on deck for this week. It's a simple setup. See what we're looking for here. So while I was here last week, again, Smash Day, Larry Williams style, is a failed breakout. So when the candle closes outside the prior candle's range, you just look for a break of that day's range. So when I was here on Tuesday, Wednesday, we are saying, okay, well, the smash day would have been the break below Tuesday's low. But then we didn't get it. We hung out around that day's high. So that would make this day we closed above the prior day's high, just barely. So we would have shorted the break below that low, and it would have worked pretty well. And that's on a daily chart. Now, so if we look at what we're getting ready for today and this week, Friday, we basically closed at the low, and the failed breakout would be if we broke above the high. But technically, it's not really a valid setup because it closed at the low. So if we look over, and the question came up last week, well, what time frame is this on? I've been talking about it on the daily. I did some research over the weekend, and people talk about using a 30-minute, using different time frames. So you could do it on a weekly chart, where last week we did close above the prior week's high. So this would be a short setup if you were going to be looking for a smash burger. This would be your entry, the break below last week's low, and your stop would be the break above last week's high as a short setup on the SPY. So that's kind of, again, the idea of a smash day. If we jump over to the Qs, the Qs actually do have a possible daily long setup smash day because Friday closed just barely below Thursday's low. So if we broke Friday's high, which we will get an alert here in the room, that would be a long setup, and this would be the low. So that's just kind of, again, we talk about these smash days a good amount, but let's jump into individual specific charts. I will be looking at the NASDAQ, but kind of based on what Hells was talking about this morning with the ERs, I am very much bracing for the NASDAQ to be the most difficult to trade this week. It's like if we have Microsoft and Google and Meta, and rebalancing is this week. There's a lot to deal with in terms of
Didn't we already? I think we already rebalanced.
yeah. Well, either way, it's not going to be easy to get the NASDAQ. There's going to be a lot of hesitation with the big boys getting ready for their ER. So kind of what I'm looking at here is definitely lining up with what Bender had, this this falling channel. We could probably add a trend line down, this kind of falling wedge type thing. So there's this setup here, this kind of idea. But in terms of what I have marked up here on the chart, we've got an overlapping fair value gaps down here below this orange box. Overlaps with the yellow, which is orange is going to be a weekly fair value gap, and then the yellows are daily. So there's some overlap here. This strong pink line there, that's the new week opening gap. And then we left this daily fair value gap above. So we've got upside targets. And then I also marked off this little volume imbalance thing. Mr. T seems to, highlight those as a potential draw on like the price action at some point. I would imagine we're going to need to go up there and fill that. So this is kind of what I'll be looking for. We've got, upside targets. One thing we've talked about in the past, when we start to see these highs build out like this, that means that the algorithms are just going to be saying, okay, well, once we stop out this guy, we got to go stop out this guy, and we got to go stop out this guy, and just kind of as they built versus, if we took out this low, there's a bunch of pretty equal stops sitting here. So I could, we could see maybe a rundown to stop these guys out potentially, but we'll kind of just see what we get. And the other thing that we could note would be these candles, the green candles before push down. These could be considered bears in these green candles that just wanted to get their shorts in cheaper. There's a Mr. T that's his order block theory. So we'll have to watch as we kind of run up into these green candles, what kind of price action we get. If we jump over to the Russell, very similar. I didn't mark up as many fair value gaps here on this one, but just as a quick idea, we do have some above. We've got like this guy here. There's that. And then basically the top of this guy up over into here would be all unbalanced. So we've got some upside and downside targets here on the Russell. This would be our new week opening gap. It's pink box. So I'll probably change these up so that they'd be a little different, but that this would be kind of first upside target would be up into, I can barely see that now. We'll be up into this area. If we were to push up, be looking for this first 1984.60 below. First downside target would be 1863.80. So just kind of see what we get. Also a similar falling setup there on the Russell. I didn't have a ton for individual tickers. The main one I will be focusing on this week is going to be Moderna, which is kind of a little bit outside the box from what we are talking about in here. But this dark pool from Friday, I posted the rest of the dark pools in the room, but this one line here at 126.43, 68% average 30-day. That's rare with Moderna. That doesn't happen very often. We're sitting on it. And so I'm going to be focusing on this one above, be watching this 128.15 level. And then below, if we lose the dark pool, first thing I'll be looking for is this 124.25. And then it looks like there was something down there at 121.65. So that's going to be the main focus I've got. And I'll just kind of call out live other levels. I'm going to be watching probably NVIDIA and stuff. But that's all I got for now.
I like your Moderna setup over there.
Yeah, I think, if we're thinking tech is, tired and big earnings and maybe some changes, it's like kind of thinking about other places to look. And the big dark pool caught my eye. So I think there's a good setup here.
No, it's definitely, off the path a little bit. But yeah, for sure. All right, very nice. You guys have anything else you want to trot out here?
No, nothing for me. I don't think so. Covered it all.
We got about 15 minutes till open. As Bender mentioned, we have some additional data just after open, PMI, which is a a piece of the overall puzzle. So let's be aware. Let's have fun. It's a big week. It's one of those weeks to where we could have complete and total market direction going all the way up until Wednesday at 2:00, and then we get the switcheroo. So either way. Let's be aware, let's be sharp, and let's have a good, positive week. Thanks, guys.